All right. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everybody. We'll get started in just a second here. Hello, hello. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everyone. We'll get started in just a second. Let me get some windows up here so I can make sure that I can see all your comments as people come into the room here. Alrighty. Looking good there. Hello, hello. Hello, John. Hello, Bakshish, Christopher, okay, Victoria. Looks like we got a nice quorum coming in now. And without further ado, for those of you who are on time, let me just jump in a little bit and tell you about what we're going to be doing today. First of all, my name is Terry White. I'm the Worldwide Design and Photography Evangelist for Adobe. It's my pleasure to be streaming to you live on this beautiful Friday morning, afternoon, and evening. I know there are all kinds of crazy things going on in the world today, and I'm not taking that lightly. I just thought I would take some of your attention away from it for a few minutes, at least today. My heart goes out to all the families affected by the tragedies that are going on in the world as we speak. So with that said, welcome everyone. And today we're going to do a few of my favorite Adobe Muse tips and tricks and just little hidden gems along the way. Now, I haven't done a live stream on Adobe Muse in a while. That's because my good colleague and product manager, Danny Beaumont, has been doing them regularly on the Adobe Muse Facebook page. So if you want to see more Adobe Muse, then head over to facebook.com/Adobe Muse when my stream is over, and you can like the page and be notified every time Danny goes on, which is, I think she's doing them at least every other week on a regular basis. So Danny is the expert. She lives, eats, and breathes Muse every single day. And of course, I bow down to her knowledge because she just knows so much about Muse. And, you know, that way you're hearing it directly from the product team. But like I said, I thought I would just come on today and share a few of my favorite things about Muse. Some things are not, necessarily the newest and greatest. Some of them are. And I'll just go through them in no particular order. Some of these have been around for a while. Some of these are hidden. Some of these are in more recent versions of CC. And yes, Robert, I agree. Danny has been awesome. All right, so with all that said, let's go ahead and switch over to my display so you guys can see what I'm doing here. I've got a couple of Muse sites open right now. And I'm scrolled down maybe a quarter of the way or 2/3 of the way, or a third of the way, I should say, on a long page. And you can create a Muse site that's multiple pages. You can create a site that is just one long page. And one of my favorite tips that they kind of snuck in, I think it was last year, maybe year before last, it's all a blur now. But one of my favorite tips that they snuck in is over here on the hand tool, on the tool panel, you got the hand and the zoom tool. Both of those have a double click feature. So that means if you go over to the tool and you just double click on it, that will, no matter how long your page is, that'll give you an at-a-glance fit in window view. So I love that when I'm trying to see like where things are on a page, especially if I'm opening up a page I haven't worked on in a while, or if I'm working on, let's see. Well, here's a question from David that caught my attention. When will you be able to package Muse like you can InDesign? And David, that brings up an interesting question. I'll finish this tip, but what do you mean by package? Because right now, your Muse site is kind of self-contained. And when you export the site as HTML, that's everything that's in the site that goes on the web. So I'd be interested to know more about what you mean by package. But anyway, so double-clicking the hand tool will give you the fit in window view, and double-clicking the magnifying glass will take you back to 100%. So I use that all the time on longer pages. The next one, and this is probably my favorite, well, I'll show you something first, and I'll show you why the next thing is going to be my favorite tip. It's my favorite new little widget they snuck into Muse. But before I get to that, I gotta make the case for it. So I've got this long, kind of boring page on a registration and description about a family reunion that's coming up. And what I want to do is kind of break it up a little bit by putting an image in. Now, of course, I can put that image anywhere I want. That's the beauty of Muse. It's like a page layout program. I can stick it over there in that white space. I can put it between a couple of paragraphs. But one of the things that a lot of people don't realize is that just like in InDesign, you can make inline graphics, and you can even make those inline graphics have text wrap. So for example, let's go get the image I want. I'm going to go to my CC libraries. I'm going to go to my library. I have a library called Adobe Stock where I get and keep all my Adobe Stock purchases. And I've got this one because we're in this paragraph, I'm talking about transportation from the airport using Uber or Lyft. And of course, I've got a stock image that represents that kind of, it's basically a chauffeur loading luggage into the back of a car. So I'm going to go ahead and just put that here for now, make it, about that size. And now that I've got that image in place, I'm going to go ahead and put the library away. And of course, that image is free form. That image will be wherever it is. And of course, I can pin it. I can have it resized responsibly or not. I'm going to say no. And the next thing I want to do is I want that image to be a part of that text that talks about the transportation. So I'm going to go ahead and make it actually a little smaller, right about that. And now I'm going to go ahead and cut it. Just put it on the clipboard. Just do a cut. And now that I've cut it, I can go to the text tool, which by the way, another shortcut if you're tired of in Adobe apps switching between the selection and the text tool all the time. You can just usually, in most apps, double click on the text, and that will put you in the type tool. So now I'm in the type tool. I'm just going to put my cursor over to the first part of that text where the if starts. So underneath the hotel, airport, beach, right before that first paragraph, if, and now I'm going to go ahead and paste in that graphic. So let's do a paste, and that will paste it in. And of course, that's what it always does and when you're pasting an image in text. It's treating it like a giant character, and that giant character now kind of makes the rest look weird. All right, so before we worry about the text overlapping, because that gets into my next tip, let's fix the text wrap on this. And this is one of the cool things that once you make an inline graphic, you can go in and then work with text wrap. So over here on the right-hand side, in your tool panel, you've actually got some text wrap icons. So you've got the wrap where it's kind of doing it by default. It's putting the text above and below the image. Of course, the text right next to it is still there. You can also put the image to the left, having the text wrap around it, or even slide the image and keep it all the way right justified with the text wrapping along the left side. So let me go ahead and just experiment with those last two buttons. If I do that, then of course it does the right thing. It wraps the text on the right side of the image. And if I click on the one on the right, then it does the opposite. It puts the text on the left side of the image. And I kind of like that look better. But let's say you did want it on the left side. Then what you could do is you're probably going to say, yeah, that's okay, but now the text is too close to the image. And that's where another little hidden thing about Muse comes in. Usually, in the Muse interface, there's two sets of options. There are the most obvious options, like the ones that are icons, but then you'll notice the word wrap has that dotted underline under it. Whenever you see that dotted underline, that usually means that's a hyperlink or a menu that will open up more options. So for example, if I click the word wrap, then it will give me all the options like moving the text away from the image, basically giving me some offsets. Now, this is one thing I learned the hard way, is that it locks all four to happen at the same time by default. So I'm going to go ahead and uncheck that, break that link, because I only want the text to be pushed out on the right side. I don't want it to be pushed up. I don't want it to be pushed down. So let me go ahead and just move the text now over more to the right. And as you can see, I just put a couple clicks in, and I can put in as much space as I want, and the text will keep wrapping now to the right. And if I did want to get some more space above it, maybe for that headline, I can move it down and kind of do that, and just give me a little bit more space so it's not so tight up against the text. And it'll just keep, as that page comes in, the text will keep wrapping, but never go over the top of the image. And also, as I add more text above, the whole thing will get pushed down, so I don't ever have to worry about the position of that image anymore. It will always stay in that spot. So that's one thing I love about doing that. Okay, David's expanded upon his package thing. In a package in Muse file where progress, so places all the fonts, images, and into a folder. Can be zipped, another computer. For example, blah, 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 blah. Okay. So he's like, basically wants to create a package for Muse that he can hand off either to another computer or to another person, and they would have everything they need to keep going on that. I'm thinking there's some ways to do that without necessarily it being a package, but let me think on that, and if I can't think of a solution now off the top of my head, maybe I can follow up with you now that you're officially in the chat and your comment will stay there. But I get what you mean now. Okay, so that's one. Now, once I fixed that, it kind of fixed the problem that I was originally running into where this frame was going to overlap this frame. And I've got a few different frames here. Now, if I ever wanted to prevent that frame overlapping problem that I was just about to have, then what I could do is just not have so many frames. Like, there's no reason why this text and this couldn't be cut and pasted into this. And this couldn't be cut and pasted into this. So I could just make one long frame, and that way I would never have to worry about everything overlapping. But if I didn't do that, which I didn't, this brings up my favorite new widget. So let me go ahead and close the text wrap thing, and let me switch over to a different breakpoint where the problem will exist. If I switch to a different breakpoint, and I scroll down, okay, it's not so bad there. Let's go to a different breakpoint. It looks like it's going to make a liar out of me. It's not going to have the problem. There we go. Here's the problem. Okay. So now you can see where that frame is actually starting to encroach or have a problem with the other frames, probably in every breakpoint that gets smaller from here on out. So what I can do is select that frame that needs to go down. And this is the thing that used to bug me about Muse until they added this feature. I would have to not only select that frame, but I would have to select every object below it and move it all down together. Because if I just move that frame down, then it's going to overlap the donate button. If I move that down, it's going to overlap the add songs button. So it's just going to, or text, it's just going to keep compounding the problem. Except now I have a new widget to take care of that. And what I mean by widget, a little tool inside of Muse, not a Muse widget. Over here, whenever you select an object on the page, any object, over here on the left-hand side, you will have this little double arrow icon. This little double arrow icon, let me make sure you can see it, and I'm not covering it. Good, I'm not covering it. That little double arrow icon takes whatever's selected and everything below it and moves it up or down. That's what I love about it. So I don't have to worry about what's below that. If I just grab that double arrow and pull down, it's moving everything down. Everything on the page. I could have 50,000 things down on that page, and now they would all be moving down. So I don't have to manually go and select all those things. So same thing if I go to this breakpoint, and I probably got the same problem here. Yep, it's still selected, so just move everything down. Now again, the smarter thing would put all that in one frame, then I would never have to worry about it. But in this case, where these all need to be fixed because I added something, or maybe I took something away and they all need to be moved up, grab the topmost object, move them all up together. So that is my favorite because I do a lot of sites probably not as efficiently as I should. But that lets me move everything down at once. So love, 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 love that feature. All right, next up, let's go to Ike's Bikes, a different site. And you notice that and you're like, wow, I know, Robert, it is like, wow. I love that thing. Saves a lot of time. Yes, it does. Okay, cool. All right, now we're on this site, and no matter what site you're on, this is one of my other kind of favorite little unknown things. Okay, you see how this site has a home page, an about page, a products page, a services page, and a contact page. And of course, I'm covering up the master page down there at the bottom. If you were to publish this site as is, and someone went to the site, Ike's Bikes, whatever the URL is, in their browser tab, all it would say is home. Like that would be the name of the page, because that's what you call the page. And if they have a bunch of tabs open like I do, they may not remember what home belongs to, like what site is that. So for example, I can go in and double click on the master page. So I'm down here behind my head here, go that way. Double click the master page. And when I open up the master page, one of the questions I see in the chat is, why doesn't Muse have tables? I'm right there with you. I've been asking for tables for a while, but we don't have it yet. All right, so anyway, let's go in and we're in the master page. Let's go to the page properties. And in the page properties, you're normally going to be on layout. But if you switch over to metadata, then there's a page title prefix and suffix. So whatever you put in here, let's just call it Ike's Bikes, and we'll do one of those divider bars there, which is a shift backslash, and then a space. Okay, so it's important that I put a space after it. So Ike's Bikes, space, that little symbol, and a space after it. So now when I click OK, what that technically did is no matter what I call all my pages, let's get back to the site itself. No matter what I call all the pages, it doesn't change the name of the pages. They're still home, about, products, services, and contact. But in the browser, when someone looks at your site, it'll be Ike's Bikes, space, slash, space, home. Ike's Bikes, about. Ike's Bikes, products. Ike's Bikes, services, so forth and so on. So that way, no matter what, in the tab, people will know that they're on the Ike's Bikes site. It won't just say home, or it won't just say about. All right, next up. Let's go to the about page, which I think I already have open. Good, and I'm just using this page as a sample. And now that I'm on this page, we're going to talk about one of the other kind of little hidden things is that you can place native Photoshop files inside of Muse. I'm going to do that in a second. But there's a different kind of way of placing native Photoshop files in Muse. When you go to the File menu and you choose Place, that just places whatever you're about to place as an image. So if I go place a Photoshop file, at the end of the day, when it renders out that site, that Photoshop file will be turned into a JPEG or a PNG file. If I go place, no matter what it is, a JPEG, a PNG, a GIF, whatever they are, they will be rendered out as graphics. But you notice right below that, there's Place Photoshop button. When I place Photoshop button, what that will do is get Muse into a mode of whatever you're about to place. Don't just place it as a graphic. Look at the layers inside that Photoshop file. And I'll give you an example of how you would use this. Place Photoshop button. I have a Photoshop file right here. It's called facebook.psd. And as you might imagine, it's the Facebook icon that I'm going to use maybe as a social media button. But it's a Photoshop file with layers. And now you're about to see what those layers will do for me in Muse. When I click open, look at what happens. This came up automatically. It detected that I had layers, and now it's letting me pick and choose what those layers will actually do as a button inside of my site. So composite means how the button will look when no one's interacting with it. It'll just be grayed out. Over means when someone hovers over that button, it changes to that layer. So I have a blue layer and I have a gray layer inside of Photoshop. I can have 4 layers. I can have a mouse down that's a different color, or highlight, or glow, or some other Photoshop effect, or an active state, so forth and so on. Maybe the active state reverses it out. Maybe the blue is on the inside and the white's on the outside. Whatever effect you want, just go create your Photoshop file with those up to 4 layers. Now when I click OK, I get to place it just like I would any other graphic. And to see this work, we'll just jump over to preview. And Tyler's mind is blown. No problem, Tyler. And now I didn't make a link to that button or anything, but just placing it as a Photoshop button. Now when I hover over it, it switches to blue. So that happens automatically. It's writing the JavaScript behind the scenes to make that a rollover just by making your Photoshop layers and then placing it as a Photoshop button. I know that's hard to see. Let me zoom in on it. So that's all that's doing is just rolling that over. Now when I click on it, nothing happens because I didn't actually make a link for that button. But that's what it would do. So now if I really wanted to use that button, I'd switch back to the design mode. And once I'm in design, I could then go into my links and I could go ahead and type a link in for that. So we can say that that goes to facebook.com/Terry White fans. And now that button will actually work as a button to go to that particular Facebook page or any other link you put in. So you can make anything a button just by making your Photoshop layer. So Ray's asking a good question. How does that work with touch tablets and phones? Well, touch tablets and phones don't have an overstate, so they would only ever see the composite state. They would never see the overstate, but the button itself would still work. Great question. Andy says, very cool. All right. All right, well, I'm glad I and Muse are making your lives better. Okay, next one comes in, and this is one of my favorite tips in terms of working with color. The site, right, as you can see, has very little color in it. Let's just move this button out of the way here. Let's just move that down. Okay, so this particular site doesn't have a lot of color in it. And I admittedly am horrible at working with colors from scratch. If you give me colors, I can go ahead and apply them to what they need to be applied to. If I have to come up with the colors on my own, that's where I'm not that good. So I love it when I have a color theme, meaning 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 colors to work with. Then that should be that color, that should be that color. Yeah, then it's easy. But coming up with those complementary colors to begin with has always been my problem. So let's head to the website. And the website we're going to go to is free for you to use. It's color.adobe.com. When you go to color.adobe.com and you're signed in with your Adobe ID, then you will have access to all of your color themes. And of course, you're saying, well, I don't have any color themes. Well, number one, you can make some color themes right here on the website. You can actually move those color sliders around and make a theme. That's great, again, for people that kind of know where they want to go. I'm going to even make it easier for you. You see that camera icon in the right-hand corner up there? That's my favorite icon on this whole site. Because what that will let me do is it will let me go get an image that I'm going to use on the site, and therefore I can steal the colors from it. InDesign's got a tool for this built in, and I wish Muse had that tool. It's called a color theme tool. But since Muse doesn't have it, I'll do it this way. Let's go to pictures. Let me go to, I think I've got some Iceland pictures in here. Got some nice colors in them. Maybe, maybe not. Oh, maybe not. All right. I don't know. Let's do it this way. Demodify. Always trying to have a hard time finding the image I want to use. Oh, you know what? Let's just do it this way. Do a search. All right. When all else fails, search. I'm just going to find an image that's got, that's got some great colors in it. All right, so that's the image I want to use, and pretend I'm using that image on the site as well. So I'll open that image up and look at what happens. Now, this is also just like using Capture, the free Capture app on your iOS or Android device. So this went and found colors, but I'm like, I don't really like the theme it came up with by default. Over on the left side, above my head, there are some choices. So colorful was by default. I can click on bright and it will kind of shift them around. I can click on muted and it will shift them around. I can click on deep and it will shift them around. I can click on dark and it will shift them around. And you know what? I don't like any of them. I don't like any of the ones it picked from my image. It's a computer, it's an algorithm. It's not doing what I'm looking at. I'm looking at some colors I want. So you know what I can do? I can pick up these and literally move them around to the colors that I want. So I kind of want that purple color over there. I kind of want that green color right there. I kind of want some of that color and then maybe some of this color. All right, so now you know what, I don't really like that color. Let's do that color instead. I had it a second ago, right there. Okay, so now I've kind of got the theme I'm looking for. No problem. Over on the left-hand side, click Save. And you're probably saying, well, how are you going to get this back into Muse? Well, I can save it to any of my CC libraries, including my Adobe Live, which is the library I've been using on my streams. And now I'll save it to that library. And there it is. It's been saved on the site. Now I can head back to Muse, bring up my CC libraries, switch to my Adobe Live library, and now that Iceland theme is there. So now I can start styling things with the colors that are in that image that I'm going to use on the site, or maybe not. Maybe it's the corporate image that I just want to be able to use all the same colors, whether I'm using the colors on the site or not. So with that said, we've got an easy way to keep the colors consistent. And since that's in a CC library, that means it's now accessible to me everywhere. It's accessible to me in Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign, Premiere, After Effects. I can use the same colors throughout the entire campaign, whether it's just Muse or other apps as well. Okay, next up has to deal with, I told you I was going to do this thing too. So let me go ahead and do this and get it out of the way. File, place. Now, I'm not doing the Photoshop Places button. This time I'm going to place as just a regular image. I'm going to go to I think I know where this one is. Let's go back by name, Muse, to place. Ooh, that's not the one I want. Ooh, no, that's the wrong to place. Maybe in slideshow images. No, where's my Photoshop file that I always use? Assets to place, there it is. Okay, here we go. I want to place the PSD file. Let me find it real quick here. There it is, slide number 2, PSD. Okay, so now I'm placing a native Photoshop file, and I can import it either a single layer or as the composite, all the layers together. So when I place this, I get the ability to place this image and of course, size it within my guides. And you're saying, so what? You placed an image. Well, that image actually is a Photoshop layered file. And if I don't do anything else, that's the last way it appeared in Photoshop. That's the last way it was saved, and that's the way it's going to look on the site. But now, if I get to a point where the client says they want to change the image based on the layers that I've shown them, they want to create a fall campaign, a winter campaign, maybe the model's wearing different coats or jackets, and they want to keep switching those out. Or they want to keep switching the background, and I've got all that done in layers. All I would have to do is right-click, Edit Original, and when I choose Edit Original, that'll switch me over to Photoshop where the layers are there, and I can then just turn on or off a layer based on whatever I've done in that file. So I've just turned off the top layer, which reveals that that was content-aware field in. We'll save that, we'll close it, we'll switch back to Muse, and Muse updates. So Muse will always update based on what was done inside inside that Photoshop file or how it was last saved. So I can keep updating and trying it as often as I want to. All right, so with that said, let's go ahead and keep going. All right. Small buttons on the side, phone unfolds, blah, 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 blah. Hope you understand. Okay, so Jimmy's asking a question that's going to take a little bit more time to explain, but I can give it to you in a nutshell. So what Jimmy's asking is, how do I make one of those mobile menus that, like, this one's all screwed up, but like this one would be if these lines weren't all the way over there. So in other words, in this breakpoint, we see the full menu, and in this breakpoint, the full menu is like down there, but then when we go to the smaller size, we get the 3 bars. So what that is in a nutshell is an accordion widget. So the trigger is just simply 3 lines, and these lines, for whatever reason, are extended way out too far. But it's just 3 lines that you can draw with the rectangle tool. So draw 3 rectangles, fill them with whatever color you want, group them together, I recommend. And then in the accordion panel, when it's expanded out, you would actually place your mobile menu. You can place either a vertical menu or you can build a manual menu. And what you do in this breakpoint, and this is actually this is a tip that I was going to do later, but let's go to layers. And just want to see if it's here. Oh, you know what? This might be on the master page. Hang on. Let me go to the master. This might be here. Yeah, here we go. All right, so you see in the master page here, when I'm on this breakpoint, we see the full menu, and therefore the full menu is showing, but the accordion is not. So that's how that works. When we get down to this breakpoint, then the full menu is not showing, or basically hidden, and the accordion is shown. So that's how these menus, how a mobile menu is created. There's no such thing as a mobile menu widget built into Muse. You basically build one out of the accordion panel. So that's the way it looks when it's opened or expanded. That's the way it looks when it's closed. And that accordion is simply hidden or shown based on this. And again, I need to fix this. This is driving me nuts. Let's go ahead and fix these down. I need to zoom in on, you know what? I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'll show you how to build this. Let's just get rid of these. All right, let's zoom in. Not that much. And we're just going to go ahead and build one from scratch. We'll grab the rectangle tool, and we'll just drag out a rectangle. And then we'll go ahead and fill that rectangle with a color. Again, it can be any color you want. And then we'll just duplicate that rectangle. So another tip, hold down your Option or Alt key in most Adobe products, and when you drag, that will create a duplicate. So one more time, we'll drag, one more time, and make sure you turn off the responsive width on these. You don't want these resizing, you don't want them moving around, you don't want them doing any weird things. All right, so now we'll go ahead and simply say that we want all 3 of those, and we're going to group them together so they don't move around. And that's what your button, and all this doesn't really do anything. This is just the visual people see to know where the menu is. So that's one way to do it for your visual menu. Now, the other thing you have to remember is anytime you add something to your page, it's added in all the breakpoints now. So this menu thing that I just created, the accordion's not in the other breakpoints, but those 3 rectangles are, or they're now all over the place. So what you can do is once you build it, this is another tip for people working with responsive design, you can then right-click and you can say hide in other breakpoints, meaning I only want to see it here. Don't put it in all the other breakpoints. All right, so now it's only in that one spot. And therefore, when I go to this breakpoint, it's not there. When I go to this breakpoint, it is there. Okay, last tip, because we're out of time. We're way over time, as a matter of fact. Let me go back to this, and let's go out. And let's talk about vectors. So when Muse first came out, vectors were, no problem, Jimmy, glad I could help. Vectors were, basically there was no way to bring a vector into Muse. If you did something in Illustrator, you did a logo, you did something, you basically had to save it out of Illustrator as a PNG or JPEG if you want it. whatever file format, GIF, PNG that you want it, and then bring it in that way. Since then, Muse has been updated to not only support vectors, but support them in a great way, which is SVG, Scalable Vector Graphics. So you can either A, save your image out from like Illustrator as an SVG file and bring that right in. That works great. B, you can drag your vector image into a library and then bring it into Muse that way. That works great. Or, last but not least, which I thought I had Illustrator open, last but not least, you can also do something that most people don't realize you can now do in Illustrator, and that is copy paste. Now, one of my other last little tips I was going to show was that you might want to do that with, sometimes you might want to do it with text. Like if you're trying to keep text from wrapping, you want it to scale nicely as the site gets smaller, then you can have a text logo that is SVG, so it still looks like text, still has the same properties and great resolution, but it will scale nicely. So in this case, I've got this sailboat, which this is all vectors inside Illustrator. I can select the whole thing. I can copy it, and when I head back over to Muse, I can paste it. And when I paste that in, it comes in as scalable vector. So every time I resize it, it might even do a little spinny wheel for a second while it's scaling it down for SVG. So if we were to go look at this particular example inside the assets panel, we would see that it says that it's pasted SVG. So even though it came from Illustrator, when I pasted it in, it automatically converted it to scalable vector graphics. So that means no matter how big this gets or how small it gets, when it renders it out on the web, it'll render a nice scalable vector graphic version of it in people's browsers. All right, I am out of time. Last but not least, I'll just point you to a website where you can go get some inspiration and learn more things. If you head over to muse.adobe.com, first and foremost, that's where a lot of the Muse information is always updated first. And then from there are two things you would want to do on this site right off the bat. You can go to the site of the day in the upper right-hand corner. The site of the day will always show you whatever the site of the day is. I haven't looked at it yet. So this is someone's site. This is not an Adobe site. This is a customer like you. This person in Germany did this site using Muse, and we featured it. You can submit your own site, and if we like it well enough, not we meaning me, but if the team likes it well enough, they will feature a site. You can go back and look at other featured sites. These were all built with Adobe Muse. So if you're trying to get ideas for what Muse can do, what kinds of sites it can make, you can even filter by the kind of site you're looking for. So if you're looking for a photography site and you want to see, hey, what kind of photography sites have people built with Muse, then you can always go and look that way. So that's one resource. The widgets is my favorite resource because for all the things that people want Muse to be able to do that it may not be able to do yet or may never be able to do, chances are someone may have built a widget for it. And a lot of the widgets are free. Some of them require subscriptions. Some of them are a one-time purchase. So it just depends on who made the widgets. These are all third-party developers. All right, so with that said, thank you. Thanks for watching me today. Looks like Nina says, I learned a lot from your presentation. Thanks and have a nice weekend. You too, Nina. You're welcome, Jeanette. Glad you're here. You're welcome, Victoria, and everyone else I'm seeing here. And yes, Gabby, SVG, Scalable Vector Graphics. Dun, 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 dun. All right. Cool. And yes, nice place for inspiration. It absolutely is. All right, so thanks, guys. Have a great weekend. I'll be back next week on the 11th. I'll be on right here on the Creative Cloud page for Facebook doing a 3-part series on becoming an Adobe stock contributor. So people that want to submit their own images, graphic designs, videos for Adobe stock, I'll be back to show you that. So with that said, thanks for watching. We'll catch you on the next one. Have a great weekend. Try to stay positive and go create something. Later, everybody.